Connecticut, they're not going to be on Fox. They're not going to be on CBS. They're not going to be. I'm the Ivy League is a league pretty much for the basketball like me, the basketball purist, the basketball still wants to believe in the legends of basketball. That it's not just about the rich, the money and everything else. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think expansion is the answer. I think what really is some way to find a way to measure um, this the better who deserves to be there. Because I could be talking on my butt here too. I didn't look. I to tell you the truth, and maybe for next week's show or as we get ready for the tournament, I'll look more in depth and take a better look in depth at who Princeton beat, who Cornell's beaten, and who's Yale beaten. I mean, if they're 9-2 in the tournament or in the conference, but that means of their 1,300 victories. Now, if they're against Albany, if they're against Colgate, then no, they don't deserve it. But I'll see what kind of what they call it, the tier one. What do they call it? What are the units?
There's the different tiers of victories. Quads is actually what they call it.
Right.
But there's other ways of looking at it. You can look at the strengths of schedule rankings and see if one of those teams is in there based on maybe who they played and who they beat and who they've got on their schedule. But that's the biggest thing, man. If these teams want to get in, they can do it. They've got to go out. They got to go out and play some of these guys.
Yeah, they got to go out.
Play some of them in the preseason. Get into one of these tournaments. At the at the holidays. The Thanksgiving tournaments, the December tournaments. You got to get in those and play somebody and maybe beat one of them.
Yeah, if I was Yale, I would definitely think of putting UConn on my schedule every year. And if I'm Princeton, I want to get Villanova at least, or one of those big Pennsylvania schools. Cornell, you got to get a Syracuse. You got to play Syracuse every year because that's your name win up there. Especially now with Syracuse being kind of low ebb, you might be able to get a victory. The one thing I want to bring up when you brought up the quads, which was interesting, a couple weeks ago, when just before the St. John's kind of meltdown stuff, I was watching one of their broadcasts, and it said they're listed as the home team for the Big East tournament, and that means any victory they get in there, they lose kind of because they're the home team.
Yeah, they lose. They don't get as much credit for the victory,
which is BS. I mean, up here, Madison Square Garden is as much a home game for UConn as it is for St. John's.
It's more of a home game for Duke than it is St. John's. I mean,
right.
Duke plays there all the time and has a better record there. Princeton actually is 127 on strength of schedule, which isn't that bad. That's a team I could see potentially, getting in, even if they don't win the conference.
Well, I'd like to see that. And when we go back, when we look at when we get down to March Madness, we'll get more into it. But I'm gonna be more into this because now that it's football is at the end, I'm into my Ivy and Big East basketball.
Yeah, Yale's 157. So those are two teams, Yale as well. As Princeton, both of those could potentially get in, even if one of them loses.
That's good news there. So we're going to go more in depth on that later on. I'm looking forward to it. The tournament is always the best basketball of the year. But let's get together. Let's start on the NFL draft. Before we get into the combine, because I know you've been watching the combine a lot, the number one draft choice is right now the biggest topic on sports talk radio and ESPN and everything, Justin Fields. And I'll just say my feeling up front. I mean, both you and I have, I don't want to speak for you. I have sketchy feelings about Caleb Williams. I don't know much about this kid. But, I mean, I understand. And when you look at the drafts, how many guys turn out to be busts, you know what you have with Justin Fields. You know he's talented. He's shown he can win NFL games. Why not bring in an offensive coordinator that can design an offense around his skills and use the draft choices somewhere else to fill out a team around him?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because it's the Chicago Bears. They do this every year. Every year they want to fire their coach. Every year they want to get rid of their quarterback. Every year they get rid of, every 4 years they get rid of their general manager. There's no continuity in this organization from top to bottom. And that's why they've been a bottom feeder for the last, 15 years. Pretty much ever since Lovie Smith was let go, they've had trouble competing in the NFL, and they've had trouble coming close to competing in their own division. I mean, it's been an absolute joke. As Aaron Rodgers said, he owns the Chicago Bears. Well, he probably could own them because their own owners don't know what the hell they're doing and might sell them to them by mistake. Let's talk about this season for them, okay? Detroit Lions are in their division. They're 12-5. The Packers are in their division. They're 9-8. Then you have the Vikings who, had their quarterback issues. They were 7-10. The Chicago Bears are right there at 7-10 as well. And that was with Justin Fields being out for 4 to 5 games with a dislocated thumb. So think about if he played all the games and hadn't dislocated his thumb. I think he came back too early, by the way. But let's say, he doesn't get hurt at all. They could very well have been in the playoffs, and taken that spot that the Green Bay Packers got, at 9-8. The Packers were only 2 games better. And, they've had their quarterback for a lot longer. So I feel like Justin Fields has proven himself. And I feel like, this guy, he's not a top 10 quarterback right now, but he doesn't have any help around him. And I feel like I saw flashes last year, certain games where, especially against the Commanders, where, he threw 5 touchdowns and dismantled them on Thursday night on primetime. This guy was just legit. And there was more the Broncos game. That certainly wasn't his fault that the defense let the Broncos score 40 points in the second half. There's deeper problems at play here. Best thing, though, for Justin Fields would be is if they do let him go, he could go somewhere else, anywhere else. He would be in good shape, because I don't think he'll ever win with the Bears, and they're just going to blame him. So best case scenario for him is getting out of town.
Yeah, but you look at the quarterbacks who've come in as number one. I mean, outside of Joe Burrow, who walked into a situation with a crappy team and a crappy coach and turned it around?
Yeah, nobody.
So,
nobody. It doesn't happen. And
right.
I don't know what they were expecting. That I guess they were expecting them to, win the division in year 2 or 3 of Justin Fields, but there just wasn't the team around there for him to work. I mean, it's just not going to happen. You have to have a defense. You have to have an offensive line. You have to have solid wide receivers. They finally went out and got him a wide receiver, and look how much better they were this year with one guy out there. So it's and they let their running back go up to Detroit, which Montgomery. Was a mistake. I mean, that letting Dave Montgomery go was a tremendous mistake. There was at least 2 to 3 football games this year where their entire running back field was not available. And so they were playing with what's his name, Blasingame, their fullback. He was the only guy that was on the roster that was healthy enough to carry the football. Deontay Foreman was hurt. Travis Homer was hurt. Rashawn Johnson was hurt. Khalil Herbert was hurt. And that was all they had to give the ball to in the game. So, Justin Fields has been, carrying this team for a couple of years, and he gets no credit for it.
No, and I like I said, I don't know if Caleb Williams is going to be the answer anyways. I mean, everybody's in love with him. He's short in stature. Who can he? He seems to have a lot of arm talent and everything, but I mean, I don't know. A USC quarterback's not exactly what I build my stuff around.
Well, and as Wes, pointedly said, the character is kind of a question mark with this kid. I mean, he's just kind of all over the place with some of the things that he's interested in. And let's be honest, man, this year was a disaster for USC. I mean, they paid this coach $12 million to come out there, not to mention the plane and the house and the beach and everything else that Lincoln got out there. And it was just a disaster. And Caleb Williams, put up some decent numbers, but there were times, especially when they played good teams, where he really really struggled.
Yeah, exactly. Before we get into the combine again, I want to talk now another quarterback who is coming under scrutiny, and it's my for the team I root for is Daniel Jones. What are the Giants going to do with Daniel Jones? I think 6 is a little bit too far down the line to look at a quarterback. Maybe a second round, looking for some kind of a project. But again, if you're Brian Dable and you were the hero of New York 2 years ago, this year not so much. Is Daniel Jones going to be ready? And can you trust, since he's only been healthy 1 full year in his career, can you build around him?
I thought let's be awesome. Let's be honest. He had one good year. I mean, one really good year, and he got paid based upon that. And they were winning games because of Saquon, because of the way their defense was playing. He wasn't making mistakes. He kind of cleaned up that area of his game where he wasn't fumbling it 3 times. He wasn't throwing 2 picks, but it wasn't like he was just taking things on his back and winning games for the Giants. So I think they did what they had to do moving forward based on that season. But I think they know now he's at best injury prone and maybe, having serious injuries. We're not sure what he's going to look like coming back from this neck injury, Joe. So they've got to go out. I think they've got to draft somebody. Do they draft somebody at number 6? I don't know, but they're definitely going to draft a quarterback in this draft, and they're going to bring in a veteran as well. Who that veteran is, that's up for debate.
But you see, the other thing is you can go out and get a new you can go out and get a new quarterback and bring him in here, but he's going to walk into the same problems. You got to solve the problems they got for him that are there already. The offensive line, no wide receivers, no tight end. I mean, somehow you got to keep Saquon in. And the other thing is, what is the defense going to be like this year without Wink Martindale? I'm not saying Dable made a mistake by pushing him out the door. You can't have a defensive coordinator on your staff that's going to be, stabbing you in the back, whatever went on. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, the defense did respond to Martindale's way of coaching. So the fact of the matter is, you got to make sure you bring in a good defensive coordinator who can keep the level on the defensive side of the ball up. And then you have to go out and, solve the offensive somehow. And I don't know if bringing a new quarterback in is going to make a big difference because the offensive line just sucks. And they don't know how to draft wide receivers, as we can tell so far. They never gave the rookie last year a real good chance. I don't think. I mean,
I think he showed flashes. I think,
but you got to get him in there and throw him the ball.
Yeah, well, who's throwing him the ball? That was part of the problem. I mean, they were running the triple option with Danny DeVito towards the end of the season. Your little actor buddy. So that was part of the problem. I think the offensive line's getting better. Andrew Thomas is not a bust. He's proven to be a good player. John Michael Schmitz is going to be a solid NFL center. They had to bring Justin Pugh in towards the end of the season because of all the injuries. They just had a lot of injuries this year on the offensive line, and I think they're going to be better. Evan Neal is still kind of a work in progress, but I think he's a guy that they can build around. They brought in Darren Waller. That didn't really work out, but it's once again, how do you judge any of these guys with the quarterback issues they had? So I think they're going to bring in, like I said, a veteran. Who that guy is really debatable right now, but it's a very touchy-feely kind of situation, because if you bring in, Kirk Cousins, well, then you're telling Daniel Jones he's done. And so you can't really do something like that, but they're going to bring somebody in to compete with Daniel Jones. And I think they're going to bring in, a rookie, as I said, as well, who could potentially, be a developmental guy, or, once the season is out of doubt, if it happens to be that way, they'll move on from both of the veteran guys and see what the young guy can do.
Yeah. Kirk Cousins worries me because of his age. I just think if he's smart, he's looking for somebody or a team that's closer to winning big than to come to.
Yeah, he's not going to New York, but I will say he had his best season ever right before the injury. The problem is, it was a bad injury. Ripping your Achilles is a tough thing to come back from. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We got Kirk Cousins, we got Aaron Rodgers, two guys that are proven ballers in this league coming back from the same injury, and I think both of them have something to prove. But I will say this: Kirk Cousins was doing his thing before he went down. He was completing 70% of his passes. He had 18 touchdowns and 5 picks. This guy was throwing for almost 300 yards a game. He looked extremely legitimate to me before the unfortunate tear of his Achilles.
All right, so let's get around to the combine. What kind of stuff are you hearing from the combine so far?
Well, just looking at the groups of players that are there, I'll say this. One thing I will definitely tell you is that I understand why none of these running backs are going to get franchised, because the running back group is just solid as can be this year. I mean, think about it. Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, Amani Bailey from TCU, who balled out at the Senior Bowl. Jonathan Brooks from Texas, Blake Corum from Michigan, Ray Davis from Kentucky, Juwan Edwards from Georgia, Audric Estime from Notre Dame, Bucky Irvin from Oregon, Dylan Johnson from Washington, Marshawn Lloyd. I mean, I could go on and on. Jalen Wright from Tennessee, Mayan Williams from Ohio State. This group is deep. And Schrader from Missouri, I really like. So I think that there's going to be a lot of running backs that are selected, and a lot of those, as far as where these guys go, I think it will come down to what this combine looks like for some of these guys, because you want to get a guy that can prove he's strong. You want to see how fast this guy is and what they can run. So I feel like the combine can really change the fortune of a lot of these running backs.
Do you think the value of the running back is going to come back? Do you think when you look at teams like San Francisco, how much they value the running game? You look at a team like the Rams, how much they value a running game. You look at Kansas City, who kind of went more towards the run this year and how successful they were. And you talk about Buffalo. Every year we've talked about it since we've been doing this show. If only Josh Allen had a running back up there he could depend on. He got one this year. But I mean, do you think maybe that the value of the running back is coming back to the NFL?
I do. I think it will. It's just a bad situation that they're in right now because of the collective bargaining agreement and what these guys signed. It just ended up being a bad situation for running backs, where the running back position was slotted salary wise, and just due to the fact that the career of the running back is so small. All those things are kind of factored in to a degree. But, look at it. The teams that Christian McCaffrey, where would the 49ers be without Christian McCaffrey? I mean, he's made a big difference, and this is a guy that scores touchdowns, every game, and is a huge difference. And the argument that I keep hearing from everybody is, look at all the teams that win the Super Bowl. It's never a team with a bell cow running back, and I'm just thinking like, okay, take exactly. That's a great example, and take away Christian McCaffrey and Isaiah Pacheco and remove them from both of these teams, and do they even make the Super Bowl? I would say maybe not. So I think it's still an important position, and the teams are just trying to be crafty and get these guys on the cheap, and I understand that, but I feel like it's cyclical, and the position will come back around in a couple of games, I think.
Talk to the Dallas Cowboys how much they wish they had a young Zeke.
Yeah. That was the other argument. They're like, the Cowboys never made it when they had Zeke, and the Titans never made it when they had Derrick Henry. Was that Zeke or Derrick Henry's fault? I don't think so. It was Dak and frickin' Ryan Tannehill's fault they never went to a Super Bowl. So.
Well, also back then, I mean, originally it was the Dallas didn't have a good enough defense. Now they have a good enough defense, and they don't have a running attack. I mean, running attack and defense work hand in hand. They control the clock. They control the momentum of the game. So that's just crazy. So go ahead. Let's get back to the countdown. I know what.
Yeah, but I do like the I do like that group as far as the running backs that are here. And I think that some of these guys will really be able to help themselves and make a name for themselves by balling out here at the combine. There's a couple of guys that I think are really going to help themselves at the combine. Right now we got the D linemen and we got the linebackers on day 2 here, and one guy that I think is going to move up quite a bit is Miles Murphy, and I think he's going to help himself quite a bit. And there's several other guys like Trayvon Wallace from Kentucky who, you always get the one or two dudes that, just blow everybody out of the water with the way that they can, run around in shorts. But there is something to be said when guys can, prove their athleticism. It really does make a big difference to some of these scouts' eyes. Now, I've heard over and over again, what are the what is the percentage of what the combine actually goes into the evaluation of the guys, and the traditional football guys will tell you about 10%, but it's not true when somebody really blows things away. Like a guy that I'll talk to a lot about the next couple of weeks is Braden Fisk, the defensive tackle from Florida State. This guy is just a nonstop football player. Did he test that well? Not really. But this is a guy that can really play the game. And I think he'll overcome some of his shortcomings. Other guys will help themselves by what they can do, on the turf.
Well, I think, the whole thing is it's the entire package. I mean, you got to look at their game films. You got to look at what they do. But the game films don't always help either, because in a lot of cases, I mean, you're not going to look at Alabama playing Vanderbilt per se. There's games where they're blowing people off, and you really don't care. You look at them in their top games, and then you put that you get your perception from there. Then like you said, you go to the bowl game, the Senior Bowl, and that what they do there, and then they're going to have their individual workouts, and then they're going to have this. But here's a one time that's important is the whole NFL can be there. They each get a chance to talk to the people they want to talk to. And a lot of people say it's the interviews more than anything else. Sitting them down in the interviews and finding out what type of people they are and what their football goals are and how much they know football, their football IQ.
Yeah, no, this is a great spot for these coaches and these general managers to get to know these guys. And a lot of these teams, they take full advantage of it. Even if it's a guy they may not draft, they'll go and talk to him because they'll, have some intel on him for down the road when he becomes a free agent. Do we want to invest in this guy? What did we get from him at the combine? What was our interview like with him? So they want to see, what kind of person you are. Do you love football? I mean, that's an easy thing to say, but some of these guys, they play football because they're good at it and they can make millions of dollars doing it. It's not necessarily because they love it, but you want the guys that love it because they'll sacrifice things to get victories, and that's important. But you also want to know, do these guys understand the scheme that we're running? If you've got something that's kind of complex and we have added layers to the scheme of your offense or your defense, you want to maybe see what this guy's retention ability is like. Tell him some schematic things, show him some stuff on the board, and then have him spit it back to you and see what he says. Because the best football players that you can find are the guys that know what their job is and then know what everybody else's job is as well, because they'll know where everybody's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do a little NBA, and then when we come back next week, we're going to start breaking down the draft. We'll take a look, put some stuff together. You for what you saw at the combine. I'll put together, we'll start with the AFC West, and we'll break down those 4 teams, what we think they need, where you think players could slot in with them. Now let's do a little NBA here. It's getting to the point of, what do you think about the Lakers? Can they make it through? Can they get to the playoffs? What about LeBron? I hear he's looking for a 3-year extension. What are you thinking about these kind of things?
My whole question is, why did the Lakers do nothing after they reached the Western Conference Finals last year? That's what I'm super confused about, because they proved to everyone, including themselves, that they can compete with the best teams in the West, that they can win series in the West, and they could potentially get to another NBA Finals like they did in 2020. And then in the offseason, they obviously in that series against the Nuggets, they were overmatched. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Everyone saw that. They needed some additional pieces, and then in the offseason, they made no moves and got nobody and brought back the same core. So that's what I'm confused about. I mean, I think they have something to work with there, but let's talk about these offseason acquisitions. I mean, they went out and got Gabe Vincent, who's been, essentially no help for them because he's been hurt. And when he's played, he hasn't really done that well. So then, after the trade deadline, when Spencer Dinwiddie was traded and then got his contract bought out, they brought him in. And it's like, is this guy a difference maker? No, I like Spencer. He's a good pro, but this dude is not a guy who's going to push you over the edge and help you win, a series against the Suns. And that's the big issue here, man. The West is stacked, and I feel like they don't have enough to get over the hump this year.
Spencer's best year was before the big shakeup in the Nets, and they had that young team with Atkinson as the coach, and then that was probably when he retires, he'll look back and go, "That was as good as it got." Because at that point he was a borderline all-star type player, and everybody liked him. He was in a good spot, and he, like you said, he's one of those nice players. He's not gonna. He's one of those guys who, on a good team or even on a great team, he's going to be a filler. He's not going to be a star.
Yeah. And you ask about the extension. Would I extend LeBron James 3 years? Yeah, I would. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's just hard to point at him and say he's slowing down when the numbers don't reflect that. I mean, he's averaging 25 points a game. He's averaging 8 assists a game. He's averaging 7 rebounds. I mean, he's almost averaging a triple double. And, he's not the issue on this basketball team. I mean, him and Anthony Davis are playing at a high level. I just feel like they need more help around them.
All right, another couple of teams out. First of all, one, you got to be happy with what the Pelicans are doing this year.
I'm very happy with the Pelicans. I'm happy with the way that Zion has stayed on the court.
Yep.
I like the way that the team is playing around Zion. I mean, they're not just going out and getting CJ McCollum. That's a move like I'm talking about for the Lakers.
Right.
When the Pelicans went out and got CJ McCollum, everything has changed around for them. They're first right now in the Southwest Division, and they're 35-25, and that's because of the core of guys that they have. That these role players can play around. Zion, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, Jonas Valanciunas. These guys are real deal basketball players, and they have a good bench too. So, and a lot of nice young guys that kind of supplement these other dudes. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of the Pelicans. The last 5-6 games have looked pretty good for them. Even in some of the games where they've lost, they've played pretty well. I think last night was a kind of a rough one against Indiana, but then they beat the Knicks the night before, and had a couple of good games where they won 5 in a row against Portland, Memphis, Washington, and Houston. So I feel like this team's on its way up, and there are a bunch of different guys that are contributing every night.
How about the Timberwolves?
Timberwolves, that's
where did they come from?
This is a team that's been kind of brewing for a while. If you think back, the Timberwolves had several number 1 picks. Well, now those guys are all playing, and they're all playing pretty freaking good. So I think they made the right picks when they had them. And now you got Anthony Edwards, who's averaging almost 27 points a game. You got Karl Anthony Towns, who's right there, averaging 23 points a game and 8.5, almost 9 rebounds. And then you got Rudy Gobert, defensive master. You added a veteran and Mike Conley to come and be your point guard. I think that was huge for them. And this is a team, in my opinion, that can compete. I've been impressed with what they've done. They're 42-17, and the record you are what your record says you are, and they're the best team in the West right now, and that's unbelievable to even say.
It is, and then we'll go and do it next week. We'll start looking at the East because I want to talk about the Knicks. They're 11 games behind the Celtics, so I think that's a little bit out of their range, but at least you get competitive. I think the Knicks are in a good spot right now. They got to get their team healthy. I like, Jalen Brunson. Who couldn't love Jalen Brunson? But the thing that gets me pissed around here, just being a New York area guy, is, man, you got the Knicks. They're having probably, I'm not gonna say the best year since ever or whatever, but they've given you a product you're proud to watch every night. And the idiot fans around here, oh, well, let's go trade for Steph Curry. It's like, come on, guys. First of all, even if you could pull that trade off, which you can't, even if you could pull that trade off, Jalen Brunson, who's put you back on the map, now becomes an afterthought.
Yeah, you want to go and trade for Steph Curry. Do you know what Steph Curry is making this year, Joe?
I'd say upwards of 50.
$52 million.
Yeah.
$52 million this year, and I believe it goes up next year substantially. There's no way you can take that contract on, especially with the other guys that you already have.
It's the guys around here. I call it the Steinbrennerization of New York. We always want somebody else's superstar. We can't be happy with the players we got. We got to get somebody else's superstar. So that they just drive me crazy. Anyways, let's wrap it up here. Let's go. Okay, next week we're going to come back. We're going to break down the AFC West, what we think with what Nate sees in the combine, with what we think they're needed, and we're going to start going down that road. We'll get into, why don't we look at the SEC basketball next week? Who we think has the real. We're going to do AFC West, SEC, and then we're going to look at the NBA East.
The Eastern Conference?
Eastern Conference.
Yeah, we kind of broke down the Western Conference tonight.
Yeah.
And, I'm interested to see what happens in the West because it's the play-in tournament is going to be very, very interesting to watch. You've got, the Pelicans right now are at number 6. And so you've got Dallas, Sacramento, Los Angeles, and Golden State in that 7 to 10 bracket, which those are the teams that are going to play in the play-in game. And really, I don't see the Jazz catching up there. They've kind of been a team that's been falling apart a little bit. They're 3-7 in their last 10, whereas the Warriors are 8-2. So I feel like we got teams going in different directions, right? You got the Lakers and the Warriors that actually have been, putting it together and turning it on. And I'm really interested to see, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the play-in tournament is actually going to be very interesting, in the West. And you can say, well, those teams don't matter. They're not going to do anything. Well, the Lakers were in the play-in last year, and they made the finals. So.
Sometimes it's getting healthy and hot at the right time. I mean,
when who you play, who you match up against. That's a big thing to me in the NBA is where you get, seated because it depends on who you play against. And if you play, you get, matched up against a team in the playoffs that you have a favorable matchup against, you can win that series. And then who knows who wins that next series based on, the other two teams that are playing each other.
Yeah. So, all right, well, let's wrap it up here right now. We will be back next week. Like we said, we're going to break down the AFC West. We're going to talk about what their draft needs are. We're going to talk about the SEC basketball as we get ready for March Madness. And then we will get into a little NBA East and anything else that goes on that we think we got to bring to your attention. This is the Safety and the Sportswriter Show with Knoxville Nate and Big Joe. Have a good weekend, my friend. Enjoy Tennessee. Take care of the Tide. Don't let it roll.
We'll do it, buddy.
Talk to you later.
See you, man.